Hello and welcome to a tier list video. Yeah, we'll do the normal warnings at the beginning of this one. I'm very careful about talking about things in tier list form. It's important to remember that if you're trying to, it kind of depends on what your goals are for what you'll get out of this video. If you're trying to win every run you play, you have to be sure that you're careful with how you think about cards because there are going to be situations for almost every card in the game. There are some that are like not quite. There are some cards that are pretty hard to play, but you have to be sure that you're thinking about what you're going to be facing on the run and what you need to be overcoming those fights. And if you just want to play and get like, I don't know, a little bit better by skipping over some of the garbage that never works, that's fine too. You can just kind of follow along. But yeah, I'm making this video. Shout out to Luke in my Discord. They made a tier list and we started talking and I went, I want to make one of these. It's fun. I maybe thinking to yourself too, I'm a big opponent of tier lists all the time. I always talk about how much tier lists are like, they're bad for your understanding of the game. And I think that it's fine as long as you approach them carefully. So you're probably then thinking, well, why are you making this tier list even then? And the answer is because they perform well. And I enjoy talking about things like this. And this is an easy way to do. It's a good way to combine things because if I just do like, hey, I'm going to talk about the cards for a little bit, it's not as exciting as tier list of all of the cards. So, I don't like to lie to you about stuff like that. So let's get to it, shall we? I made 4 tiers. I filtered out the starter cards because I'm not going to rank these. There's no purpose to it. So there's 4 tiers. And I'm probably going to make a 5th tier while I'm doing this, but I'll see what I feel as I'm going on. The real tier, this is like the, oh baby, real shit. The fine tier, like this is like the probably pick it, probably it's good to have, take it along because you probably should. The niche tier, this is going to be it has its case, but you gotta be, you don't have to take it, but there's going to be times where you should take it. And then I did make a Lamau tier, which is just, oh god, don't do it. Most of this is going to be based on, I play games like this through intuition mostly. I play the game, I pick cards a few times and I go, oof, that wasn't very good, or oh, that did a lot. So let's begin. There's no particular order here, I don't think, so we'll just get to it. I do also have the wiki open here, jump scare alert, it's going to change colors on the screen. Yeah, I have the wiki here as well, so if I need to look anything up, I have it ready to go. Let's begin. Okay, so first off on the list is Haze Balloon. And a lot of these cards I'm just going to kind of pass over because there's not a ton to say. Haze Balloon is, like, I would say it's probably niche. I think it's like, it almost deserves a spot between these 2 tiers. I think I'll put it in fine for now and we'll work it out as we go. So Haze Balloon, I'll try to remember what the cards do as well. This is the 1 scrap card that when destroyed applies a haze to the target that destroys it. Important thing to note is that there is a different card, Shroom Mine, which is on hit instead of on destruction. I think it's the only one that works like that. The way that you can think about Haze Balloon is it will tank 2 hits for you because it'll tank the initial hit that an enemy puts on you, and it will also tank their second hit. What you're going to find a lot of the time, though, is that not many enemies are living to a second hit. Or, more accurately, not a lot of enemies whose second hit you care about is living to a second hit. So for example, a Winterworm's second hit is going to be 10 turns away from the time that it spawns in. And that is like, that's a long time. By the time it gets around to the second hit, the one that's going to be hazed, it might even be 12, now that I think about it. Either way, by the time you get to that point, it should be dead. And if it isn't dead, I mean, cool. And sometimes you can use it to do things like tank boss hits. But for the most part, once you get out of the 3rd or 4th combat, you're going to go, I don't really care about this card anymore. And you're going to be right for it. But at the end of the day, something that I spoke very heavily on while discussing this in my Discord is that most of the clunkers are good because they just tank a hit. And that is fine. But I'll move them between the tiers as I see fit. Bombarder is, I know what I just said, but Bombarder's kind of niche. Mostly the problem with Bombarder is that it's very hit or miss, and even when it hits, it doesn't really do a ton. So, this is when an enemy is hit with bomb, deal damage or attack them, and it is a 0 attack unit. So you need to have a lot of bombs stacked up for this to really start to work, but you don't really put a lot of bomb out. You put bomb out in small intervals, but there are going to be times where you are playing bomb, and if you are, then Bombarder is good, because especially if you can hit some cool stuff for it, like, I don't know, pair it with Gachapomper, it can really put out some crazy high damage, but you have to get there first. Tiger Skull this is kill an ally, apply 4 spikes to a random ally. I'll put it in niche. Instinctively, I want to throw it in the bottom tier, but it's not quite bottom tier. The use case for this card, and I can also do Agile Skull right now because it's here. The use case for both of these cards, Agile Skull is kill an ally, apply 4 overburn to the front enemy. These are cards that you pick because you need to sacrifice units, and it's hard to do. That's it. There is no other reason to pick these because their effects are bad. Apply 4 spikes, or 4 teeth as it is, and also apply 4 overburn, not very worthwhile, especially on Tiger Skull because it's random. And Agile Skull, there are just better cards that do this without killing your units. A big theory and a big point of all of this for this specific build where you're doing sacrifices is that it's very hard to find the time to do sacrifices because you have to play the sacrifice unit and then you have to sacrifice them. If you're waiting for them to attack to get value, they're probably going to die, and the value isn't that good. So you have to sacrifice them before they attack, and before they get killed by enemies, because most sacrifices are rather fragile. So what I find is that these cards just don't really, you don't have the action economy to do this. And if you do, you're better off doing other things. Because spending 2 turns to kill one of your units to deal 4 overburn has to give you, like, the overburn is not important there. What's important there is that you're getting value out of the sacrifice. And if you are, cool. But a lot of the time you aren't. And that is, well, you know, they're just kind of, you only pick these because you need the sacrifice. The actual card effect is whatever. Palm Mask, our first entry into the Lamau tier. I'll actually go through and I will hunt all of these cards down at once because I'm going to do the same thing to all of them. Palm Mask. Not Tigress Mask, it's not that one. It's, where's the other one? There it is, Sheep Hopper Mask. There's one more. Leech Mask. There it is. I think those are the 3. If I find another one, I'll throw it in there. All of these are the summon a unit to the other side of the board and and then they take turns and they do things. These cards I cannot fathom playing. Truly I cannot. Palm Mask gives your units barrage. Sheep Hopper Mask deals 8 to the row it's in when it dies, and Leech Mask siphons 2 HP from all of its allies. The problem here is that these effects are very minor. Palm Mask is probably the closest to playable, but these effects are fairly minor, and yeah, how do you spend time putting another enemy on the board? There are 2 things that people will say to me about these cards, and I think that they are okay. One is that these cards will block more powerful enemies from spawning. That is true. And 2 is, I think that's it actually. The only thing you can say about these is they block more powerful enemies from spawning. I don't know. Do I really need to tell you why summoning an enemy that is going to hit you but does something minor is bad? There are times where you can pick Sheep Hopper Mask and it's okay because it'll kill something for you, but I haven't picked any of these 3 cards in a very, very long time, maybe since the game released, and I haven't had much trouble. The important thing to note here, and the most problematic part of these cards, is that you cannot play them if the enemy board is full, which means if you draw this late into a fight, or let's say, I don't know, you put 2 vase pieces together and you walked into some final boss, these cards aren't playable. Like, not even in the sense of like they're bad, you literally cannot place the enemy. It's very strange. My suggestion always is that these should be turned into curses where you would put them on an enemy and while the enemy is alive you get the effect. That would be kind of interesting, but I don't know. Totem of the Goat is fine. Demonize is good. And it takes a hit for you. Totem of the Goat is when an enemy apply 1 Demonize to it. An important aspect of this card is that it always gets you at least 1 Demonize on an enemy. Something that's easy to forget. But yeah, it'll always give you 1 Demonize, even if it dies immediately after. And that's good enough. Bling Bank, fine. I'm not gonna lie to you and say it's some real shit. Money is good, but money isn't that important. It is, at the end of the day, just woodhead, but it's woodhead that generates you, like, I don't know, probably 60 to 70 gold, or probably more like 60 to 120 gold. Mobile campfire is fine. This is apply +3 attack to the units in the row. It varies pretty wildly from really, really good to useless, but you know, I think that puts it nicely in fine. Another thing to remember as we're talking about this is that you can pick a case for almost every single one of these cards to be good, and you can pick a case for almost every single one of these cards to be bad. So you can cherry pick your data to decide how you want to do these. I'm going to rank these based on how I want to look at it, which is just how do they perform on average? How often do I feel like I take these cards, and how often when I take these cards do they do something good? And I think that that's pretty much all you can do. Berry Basket sucks. This is Heal 2 Barrage. There is not a lot of times where you're going to get full value out of this card. It's kind of hard to do, honestly, because you need 3 of your units. I guess against like a porcupine it can do something, but it's very low impact. Most of the time you're going to be losing because of a snowball effect where one of your units dies and then you just run out of turns to kill things. And Berry Basket doesn't help with that. So I actually don't think I would ever pick this card. I can't imagine it. Shroom Mine is fine. I mentioned this one earlier. It's the one where if you give it plus scrap, it does actually give more poison. I think, let me double check that actually. If you're looking at the black screen, please beware it's about to turn blue. I want to look up, I'm gonna go back to the home page here real quick. Clunkers. I want to find Shroom Mine. Yeah, it is when hit. And I think it's the only one on hit. I wanted to check which other one. I wanted to double check Haze Balloon. Haze Balloon might actually be when hit as well. No, Haze Balloon is when destroyed. Okay, just double checking because it'd be pretty silly. Yeah, so Shroom Mine is specifically on hit, and it's on hit, apply 4 poison. It's fine. I wouldn't really call it exceptional. It's just pretty good, I would argue. But at the end of the day, you can use this to sneak out of what I think are the most dangerous situations in this game are combats 3 and 4, when there's a Makoko with a bad charm you can't kill. Very specifically, in Infernoko, I think one of the possible forced loss situations is something like a Makoko with an aimless charm, the one that gives it 2 attacks, because that gets out of control really fast and you have no control over it because it's hitting aimlessly. So that's the sort of thing that I'm really looking out for. So a card like Shroom Mine can get you through that. It can get you through like a bad teeth charm on an 8 HP enemy, things like that. So it's good for that because it's 7 damage over 2 turns, but I don't know. Beyond that, it's kind of whatever. Like, you're not going to really be staking your run on this. You're not going to be taking Shroom Mine into the final bosses and going, oh man, look at it go. But it's going to get you there in like a small percentage of runs. And otherwise, it's just going to take a hit for you, which is cool. Pepper Flag is niche. Retained Spice is cool if you have Spice, but there's a bit of a... I don't have a good word for this. It's almost like a chicken and an egg situation, but that's not quite right. You have to pick Pepper Flag when you've picked Spice cards, but I don't really find Spice cards to be that good, so I don't pick those, but they are good if you have Pepper Flag, but you're not picking Pepper Flag unless you have Spice cards. It's sort of this cycle of I'm never picking any of these. But, you know, it's a low opportunity cost card to take because it is, at the end of the day, tanking a hit for you in the worst case. And in the best case, it's letting you play a crazy Spice run with something like Foxy just destroying a whole world. So that's fun. And it's a high on the fun index, but you gotta watch out for it. Don't always slam it. I mean, I guess you could always slam it if you like, but on average, you're probably going to find this to be not that good. This is a tough one, Slap Crackers. I think it's niche. I wouldn't put Slap Crackers in unpickable. Slap Crackers is deal 1 damage 4 times, aimless. There are a few really good charms with this, like Durian Charm makes it into a killer. There's also a use case without charms where you play this on Tiny Tycho, if you have a way to boost Tiny Tycho's HP and it's just for Frenzy immediately. So that stuff's cool. And anything that applies status effects is cool with Slapcrackers, but as its own individual card, it's really, really bad. It's good for killing clunkers, and that's about it. So what I find is that it's just, I wouldn't pick this ahead of time, but sometimes I have a charm and I go, well, I can put this Frost Charm on Slapcrackers and that's cool. So it's good for that, but it's like I wouldn't pick this first usually, because it's not really getting you anywhere. But if you have something for it, it's cool. It's good with Spice Sparklers too. We'll get to that. Agile Candle is niche. Basically everything I said about Pepper Flag applies to this card as well. Double Overburn. Overburn is kind of hit or miss. I don't really love to pick Overburn, although Overburn does have the benefit of having Agile Battle Axe, which is actually just a really good card. So, yeah, but I would put Agile Candle in niche the same way. Frostbite Shard is niche as well. A lot of these cards are going to end up going into niche, is what you're going to find. But what Frostbite Shard does, very specifically, it has, I would say, off the top of my head, it has two main use cases. Number one, it makes Clunker into a god. And number two is if you have a really high destruction-based run, you can play Frostbite Shard on the Junker in the final fight to make it so that it doesn't increase its attack when cards are destroyed. The biggest problem with this is that Ink does the same thing, and you start with Flask of Ink in your deck. So this card kind of just gets beaten by Flask of Ink in most cases. That's its biggest issue. But, I don't know, you can play it. Sometimes you won't always draw Flask of Ink if your deck is really big, so Frostbite Shard can get away with being okay. Storm Globe is fine. Apply 4 Snow, count down by 1 every time you play it. So 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. It's good. Snow is good. The end. Scrap Pile sucks. I won't lie to you. I don't know. The only time I've ever picked this card was to get the unlock where you have to get 10 scrap added to a unit. I've never played it outside of that. I don't really know what card wants it. I guess Shroom Mine, kind of. And maybe there are times where you're having a really close fight on the final boss. And not the Frost Guardian, of course. I am talking about the Refrigerator, whatever it's called, the Crusher and the gang. But if you have a close fight like that and you need your Chrono to live, you can play it. But all of the cool things that you can think of, like Plinker or ICGM, just have better answers than Scrap Pile. Moko Totem. I don't know. I guess at the end of the day it's niche, because in its worst case it does tank 2 hits for you. But the problem is that getting it to activate is actually just impossible. Why would you ever... But like, you pick this and then I guess you just pick up a few spice cards along the way, and it's okay, but the real benefit of Moko Totem is that it takes 2 hits instead of 1. And sometimes, I guess, the answer I guess is that sometimes you're gonna play a run where you pick this, it tanks a hit for you in the early game or 2, and then you end up seeing like 2 Dragon Peppers, and all of a sudden you have 14 times 5 on your first turn, which is fine. But you don't really stake your run on this card is what I find. I think that's the real problem. What happens is you invest a bunch of resources into this, right? You're giving up 2 crowns, you're probably putting Lumen Vase on a spice card, and it's maybe going to kill one of the final bosses, which is going to leave you pretty far behind across the rest of the fight, in my experience. Portable Workbench is fine. +3 to junk. Sorry, I should say it's an in niche, but it is okay. The use case for this card is that your deck generates a lot of junk. Like, you have a trash generating hero, you have, I don't know, what's his name? Fulby, the one that generates on hit. Things like that. If you have a bunch of junk and you're in a slow burn sort of build where you just have to live for a long time to kill things, you're going to start drawing full hands of junk, and Portable Workbench is nice to turn those into good cards. But other than that, it is just tanking a hit for you. Like, on average, it's not good. You'd be better off playing Gearhammer. But sometimes your best characters are all the junk ones, and then you're stuck with a bunch of junk in your deck you can't get rid of early on. And this is sort of like getting rid of it. Grabber's fine. This is 1 damage, yank Noomlin. The thing about this card is that it's free. Like, it only costs the draw to play it. and the draw isn't that important, and it deals 1 damage and reorganizes enemies. That's cool. But a lot of times you just pass on it because you don't need it. Like, I'm not buying this from a shop. Shade Clay, I think it is pretty niche now. I thought this card was really good, but the only good use case I have for Shade Clay anymore is if you have a Noomlin on the card you're duplicating. The problem with Shade Clay is that, so if you're duplicating a card, there are a few cards that are okay to duplicate without Noomlin, like Skull Misty or other such consumes. Molten Dip wouldn't be bad, things like that. But I don't know, it just feels like for the most part, getting a second Molten Dip isn't that good, and the amount of time you're spending to do it isn't that good, because it's 2 turns, unless you're doing it before the fight starts, but then you're giving up crowns, which is putting you behind, like I discussed earlier. So it's kind of iffy, but it is good if you have like Noomlin Biscuit Pinkberry Juice, because then you have a second one of those, or like a second Noomlin Freeze card, things like that. It's just really hard to find the action economy to spend time playing a second card, when instead you could be playing other cards and then drawing back into your original card. But I guess sometimes it's really good. Ooh, we finally get to put a card in the top tier. Gachapomper. Barrage is broken. The end. Gachapomper gives your entire row Barrage. This card is maybe the strongest card in the game. It's one of 2. I guess there are a few cases where it isn't. But yeah, I mean, Barrage is good. It just wins you the game a lot of the time. Barrage on status applications, Barrage on damage output, Barrage on anything. Gachapomper is real shit. Sunlight Drum. I've had 1 run in my entire time playing this game where Sunlight Drum was good, which I think means I should put it in the bottom tier. I'd be lying to you if I said it was niche, because I did have to juice it up with critical Noomlin charms, which really fix any card. So, yeah, sorry, Sunlight Drum. Sunlight Drum is the Barrage countdown by 1. Countdowning 2 units by 1 is pretty whatever. It's not really worth the slot. Because again, instead of spending time playing this, like, think about it like this, right? If you're spending a turn to play Sunlight Drum, instead of doing that, like, if that's all you need to do, if the best thing your deck is doing is counting down a unit or 2, instead of doing that, you could just press the bell and draw Sunrod or Sunburst 2/2. I guess maybe it would be good in Clunkers, but why? Like, why would you do that? That clan doesn't care about that. Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. Okay. On to the next one. I think Skull Misty actually deserves top tier. My top tier is a little loose, though, in this case. Yeah, you know, I'm gonna put another tier in. I figured I was going to. This is the almost tier. That's where Skull Misty goes. Skull Misty is almost good enough. It doesn't quite solo win you the run, but in a majority of runs of Shademancers, Skull Misty is the card you're looking for, because it sacrifices and it passes on attack damage. So in most runs, you're playing sacrifices or you're playing just scaling, and this card does both, so it's very good for that. But I wouldn't quite put it all the way at the top, I guess, is the problem. Yeah, the end. Hang on, I'm gonna delete the starters tier. I'm gonna pause for a second. You sit tight. Alright, sorry, I scrolled down a little bit too. I just wanted to make it more legible by removing that tier of garbage, and so I just put them all at the bottom so that they're out of the way. Let's continue. Ooh, Spore Pack. Spore Pack is probably niche. It's fine to apply poison to enemies, but it's not enough poison to make a big difference. Most of the time what you want is priority target killing, and Spore Pack is not that. Spore Pack is spreading poison across multiple targets, which is, I don't know, not very good, really. A Snowcake is almost. Snowcake is like, I don't know, you pick it, you put one of the 2 main threats on the final boss in Deep Freeze, you put Infernoko in Deep Freeze. It really does fix most of your problems. But I wouldn't put it all the way at the top, would I? Maybe I would. I might. I'll see how I feel about it later on. Dude, Ice Dice? Ooh, Ice Dice fucking sucks. That card is really bad. I don't think I've ever played it. Ice Dice is apply 1 block to an ally and an enemy at random. Random is not good. I'm not rolling dice to hope I get good block. It's probably, the downside isn't that bad of a thing. Like, I don't care that much about giving the enemies block, right? It doesn't really matter. But I don't know. Like, I don't care about giving me block either, especially if I can't control it. I don't see it. Agile Battle Axe, I think it deserves a step above the rest. Agile Battle Axe is really good because it says deal 6 damage to a single target, but it also has the subtext of dealing 3 damage to the other 2 targets in the row with the single target, or dealing 2 damage to clunkers. Like, Agile Battle Axe is very, very strong. That's it. It really is. Heart Mist Station, I think it's kind of niche. It's just fine, right? Like, it's a lot of times I'm going to skip this card, but there are going to be times where my deck has nothing going on for it, and I'm just going to pick this because it's better than skipping. Like, if everything's really bad, Heart Mist Station is okay. Heart Mist Station is, of course, this is when they get hit, they heal 1, if you're unsure. Molten Dip is almost. This is Barrage applied to attack. Basically every card that gives attack is going to be very good, but I'm not going to put it in the super top tier. It's just very good. It's not perfect. Pretty much it. Yeah, no, Barrage applied to attack. Damage up is good. The end. I've never played Gigi's Cookie Box. This is apply 2 scrap and 2 attack to a unit. Gigi's Cookie Box has one major flaw, which is that if you don't meet all of the conditions on the card, you're not allowed to play the card. So Gigi's Cookie Box requires a card to have, it requires a unit in play to have scrap and attack. How many cards have that? Well, there's ICGM, Clunker, Mega Mimic, Mimic, and Blunder Tank. So there are 5 cards in the game that can even play this. And of those, I don't know, 2 of them make meaningful use of it, Clunker and Mega Mimic. You don't care a ton about +2 attack on Mimic. Maybe, I mean, I guess I should probably pick this if I have Mimic or Mega Mimic. I think what's actually happened to me, though, is that I've never been in a position where I've had Mega Mimic or Mimic be an important part of a run and have been shown Gigi's Cookie Box. Because the other part about this card that's important to know is that it does give you 2 trash. But I don't know, I'll try to pick it some more. I'll keep an eye out for it, I suppose. Because now that I think about it, it sounds fine on paper. So why is it bad? I don't know. Proto Stomper's fine. Deal 8 damage, 2 trash. The biggest thing about Proto Stomper is that it kills Makokos. Makokos have 8 HP, Proto Stomper does 8 damage. Sweet. Problem solved. It's also good because it generates trash, which you can transition it into later on being the card that lets you do cool nonsense with trash. Because there are some cool recycle setups you can do along these lines, but for the most part, you pick it early because it deals 8 damage, and then later on, it still deals 8 damage, and sometimes it does cool stuff. ICGM is probably niche. ICGM has the big thing going for it of it has 4 scrap, and 4 is a lot of scrap, so it takes a lot of hits for you, but a 13 countdown is so long that you can play this on turn 1 and the fight can finish before it goes off. So, and there's another important concept to understand here when talking about a card like this is that a lot of times fights are finished before the win screen of the fight. And what that means is that like enemies, so here's a simple example. An enemy may be on the screen, but if they have a 5-turn timer and they're on 5 HP and you have a unit sitting in front of them who has a 4-turn timer and deals 5 damage, that unit that you're looking at is effectively dead because they will never get to make their attack again. So having situations like that matter to understand. And there are also times where it's like the boss is the only unit left and you have a Junkhead in front of it, right? And the Junkhead has 2 scrap, which means the boss can't actually hurt you for 2 full attack cycles, which means that fight is dead and over even though you haven't won yet. A lot of times ICGM is not going to come into effect until the fight is already decided. That is the word I should use, decided. So, you know, don't get lost in the sauce on stuff like that. It does a lot of damage sometimes, but a lot of times the damage is meaningless. Plinker is almost. Plinker is 5 scrap. a 5 scrap health unit, I should say, and it says lose 1 scrap every time it attacks. It has a 1 turn timer and it deals 2 damage. There's a lot of ways to make this card not kill itself, and attacking every turn is very, very strong. So, Clunker is almost busted. Dragon Pepper's fine. This is consume, apply 7 spice to a unit. This is just 1 hit of 7 extra spice, and that is fine. Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it does cool stuff with Pepper Flag, but for the most part, plus 7 on Foxy for 1 hit, plus 7 on a Barrage for 1 hit. It's enough to put you ahead, but then you have to have good stuff in the rest of your deck. Pom Bomb's fine. I always pick Pom Bomb, and then I go, man, I don't know why I picked this. I think it's just fine. There are some cool combos you can pull off with it, but for the most part, you're gonna pick it, you're gonna play it 1 or 2 times in the run, and you're gonna go, oh wow, cool Pom Bomb, thanks. And then for the rest of the run, you're gonna go, it's here. Mini Muncher. Hey, where did it go? Hello? I think my mouse just freaked out. Oh, it went here. Mini Muncher goes into niche tier. Sorry, I didn't mean to fake you out there. I think Mini Muncher is okay, but for the most part, there's not a great point to play this card. There are a few runs where all you care about is destroying cards, though, and that's cool, and it does say Numlin, but if you're destroying cards in hand, very often, what you'll find is that you're gonna not always be able to play all of the cards. Like, you're not always gonna get to the redraw bell. Think about it like this. You draw 6 cards. One of them is Mini Muncher, which doesn't count down the redraw bell, and one of them is destroyed by Mini Muncher, which means the other 4 cards in your hand have to be worth playing, or else you just have to instantly redraw. Because otherwise you're going to end up short on cards to play, which isn't that big of a deal, but, you know. Shell Shield is fine. Apply 4 shield. Cool. Magma Booster is also fine. This is damage scaling. Damage scaling is good. A lot of times the aimless doesn't matter. Sometimes you even get to overwrite the aimless because Gachapomper overwrites aimless. But yeah, at the end of the day, +3 is good. And sometimes you even get to make it +6 or +9. Blaze Tea is fine. Blaze Tea's biggest problem, so Frenzy is very good, but adding 1 to your turn timer is very bad, so they offset into just being okay. Frenzy is really, really good, but Blaze Tea is one of the worst ways to get it. Oh, I don't know which one this is. I think Foggy Brew. I'm gonna guess on this one. It doesn't matter because I'm gonna put them both in the same tier. I think Foggy Brew is the one that says apply haze to an enemy at random, so it's aimless haze and it's consume. This card is fine. The good thing about it is that it consumes. The end. It lets you skip an enemy attack, and sometimes that matters, but for the most part, you're probably fine without it. But the other good thing is that it consumes, and it's in the clan that has Nom and Stompy, so sometimes all you care about is cards that say consume on them. So I think this card sees some play. And it's not really bad, it's just not really all that good. Blank Mask is almost. Blank Mask is really, really good. It pulls you a second copy of anything, which is a great chump blocker, and it gives you a really good target to sacrifice if you have like a 6 attack hero without taking any injury, but it also just gives you a second copy of a unit to tank for you. So, yeah. Good. The end. Stormbear Spirit's niche. Stormbear Spirit, the only reason it's lower than Protostomper, this is 8 damage, but the enemy has to be frozen. Basically it's 2 turns of time to kill the enemy that Protostomper kills in 1. But other than that, I mean, dealing 8 damage is good. It's a very nice thing to have in your run because it stops you from getting caught by any paid actors. I think Spice Sparklers goes in the fine category, honestly. Spice Sparklers it's good because it makes all of your starting cards a lot better, and so you play Spice Sparklers and all of a sudden your Scrappy Swords are twice as effective at doing their damage. Every Scrappy Sword is doubly effective. That's really good because it just lets you bulldoze the early game. And then, I don't know, you get in the mid game, you kind of just let it transition into being a Woodhead, but the early game is the scary part of the run, so Spice Sparklers is cool for that. Oof. Clunker is like I almost just want to abstain from ranking it because I think that Kabonker is very good, but Kabonker is probably the biggest human error card in the game. Kabonker is the card that's going to kill you because in this game, if you play it for long enough, you get used to the known variables. Things are very easy to track. Enemies, they always do their things in a specific way. Crabs always haze you. Warthogs always smack back, and you get used to it because you see them so often. You see Kabonker maybe I see him maybe 1 in 10 runs. So it's really, really easy. If you're on a hard run and you're sitting there running through all the calculations, it's really, really easy to miss the fact that your hero is hitting into an Uba Bear and dying to Kabonker. Or an enemy spawned with a Snow Charm and you're dying to Kabonker, right? So I think that this card is very good on paper, but you have to be so careful with it. So careful with it. However, with Snoffle, it does have some of the highest potential output in the game because Snoffle Chrono Kabonker just kind of wins automatically. So I think I'm going to land on putting it in the fine tier, but you have to be so careful of Kabonker. Kabonker. It's fun though. And it does let you get through the early game a lot of the time too, because it is backline target access that goes through the boss, which is good. Soulbound Skulls, this card used to be fine. I think it's niche now. It's interesting because nothing changed about Soulbound Skulls, but I think I changed. No, something did change about Soulbound Skulls, that's right. So before Soulbound Skulls, before the beta, I think it was, or maybe it was before 105, Soulbound Skulls used to be pick an enemy, apply Soulbound to them, randomly apply Soulbound to an ally. And Soulbound, if you don't know, is when this unit dies, the other unit takes 100 damage. The problem with Soulbound Skulls before was that it could go on your hero, and then you are guaranteed to lose. The solution to this, though, is that you didn't play your hero, you just crowned Soulbound Skulls, and then crowned a unit you didn't care about, Soulbound one of the 2 frontliners in the final boss, and then you kill them for free. It made the final boss significantly easier. You just killed the jailer or the crusher on turn 1 before they even got to play. The fight is basically hamstrung. Now that it applies randomly, it's a lot less valuable to just kill, I don't know, the muncher, the one that kills your cards on turn 1. And crowns are a little more scarce as well. So I think that Soulbound Skulls fell off for 2 reasons. I talked that out because I actually didn't know why I didn't like this card until now. Intuitively, I know that Soulbound Skulls is worse, but I had to figure out why. And now I know. Crowns are less available, and it's random targeting. The end. Oh, Bite Box is the other one. Bite Box is when hit, deal damage back to the attacker equal to the damage it took. It's fine. Yeah, tanks a hit, it's fine. The end. Super Snower is apply Force Snow, recycle 2. Originally I was going to throw this in the niche tier, but I've thought about it a little more. I've never played this card. At all. There is one use case for Super Snower, and it's that there are times where your run just needs cards that say recycle on them. And you just have to clear junk out of your deck. And that's okay, but I don't know. I've never had it show up in a position where I went, oh man, I generate so much junk that I guarantee Super Snower, I'll take it. So I kind of just, I pass. I'm gonna give it what it deserves. Mega Mimic's almost. The big thing about Mega Mimic is that it's a heavy hitter in the early game, and in the later game, it is still fine. It can tank for you, or it can just continue to push its little bit of damage out. Very solid. Gigi's Gizmo is another one I've never played. Gigi's Gizmo is interesting because it says apply 1 scrap, recycle 1, and scrap pile is apply 1 scrap. The interesting thing to me about this is that when you look at a card comparison, let's say that word, like this, what you have to understand is that the developers are probably not stupid, and they probably know their game pretty well. So what this says to me is that in specifically the Junk Clan, they are valuing recycle as a positive on the card, because otherwise, Gigi's Gizmo is just strictly worse than Scrap Pile. And I don't think that's the case. I think that the idea is that there are runs where you care about recycle, And recycling junk is very good for you. It's actually a net positive to be able to clear junk. So that's the idea. And what I find is that I just don't really want to add scrap, so I don't really want to play Gigi's Gizmo. The end. Spice stones, it's niche. This is double your spice. It requires you to have other spice cards, so a lot of times you're not going to be able to pick this card. Yeah. Mimic is almost. He's pretty good. Mimic is fairly strong, but I don't think he's top tier. But attacking when all of your other units attack, he basically just he has a turn timer of whatever your rest of your units are, which means he's going to be attacking the most. So Mimic is good. One of the best stat holders in the game too. You give him +2, he's just the most effective one at holding it. Demon Heart, it's sad to put it in the bottom tier, the Lamau tier, because Demon Heart is almost really good. It's not even almost really good. It's a cool concept of a card where you play it on an enemy, you put Demonize on them, you play it on you, you heal. The problem is that when you're applying Demonize to yourself, it's going to overwrite most of the healing you're doing. And when you're putting healing on an enemy, even if, I guess the actual problem is that demonizing enemies isn't that good. But if you told me that the speedrun world record hinges around Demon Heart, I would not be shocked, because applying Demonize is good in the right circumstances. I just don't really care to do it myself. Yeah, but like, it's a cool idea of a card that you can play on an enemy or yourself, so I like it for that. I just don't think it's very playable. Fallow Mask is almost. Fallow is so good. 8 HP on a summon, so repeatable 8 HP placement, 2 damage and barrage. This unit's crazy, but there are times where your board is too full as this clan and it doesn't fit in. I just don't find myself going, oh man, I win the game off of this, I'm gonna pick this every time. I usually just go, oh cool, Fallow, we can do something with that. Clockwork Bomb, I think it might actually deserve to go in the bottom tier. I don't know if I've ever picked this. This is, I believe it's 2 damage applied to bomb critical. It's something along those lines. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel like it's all that important to add a card like this to your deck. Yeah, I don't really have anything. I don't have strong thoughts about it because I don't play it all that often. Yeah, the end. Sun Cream goes in almost. Permanent reduction of your unit's turn timer is strong. You can combine this with other things to put your units onto a 1 turn timer, which is just auto winning most games. And even in the worst case, it's a -1 and it eats a junk for you. But mostly the recycle on this is a negative. I'd rather be able to play this cheaply. People are going to hate me for this. I know this. I know this very, very well. And I understand that you're going to all come for me in the comments section. I hate Tigress Mask. This is a bottom tier card to me. I really don't understand what the hype is. Tigress Mask is 4 HP, and I think it comes in with 2, I think it's actually 1 teeth, and every time an ally is hit, it gains a teeth. I guess I can see it on paper, but the problem is that you're not getting a ton of value out of this. It's going to kill 1 target for you later in the fight, but it takes so long to charge up. Think about it like this. When you play Tigress Mask, it has 1 spike, and over the course of the fight, it's going to build up to probably like 8 to 9, but that's 7 enemy hits away from you. That's a really long time. The good thing about Tigress Mask, I guess, is that it's really good at fighting Makoko, but Tigress Mask I find is a little bit outshined by Spike, which is a rough thing for it to have to face. Yeti Skull is fine. This is sacrifice an ally, deal 4 snow to a row. Sacrificing is good, but the thing that makes this better than the other 2 cards that are skulls, the Agile and the Tiger Skull, is that I actually care about snowing enemies, and freezing a row for 4 turns is really good. This is the sort of thing where you're actually gaining turns off of this. If you're freezing 3 targets for 4 turns, you're gaining a lot of time. It's worth placing a unit and then sacrificing them for this. So, yeah, very strong. Sunglass Chime, almost strong enough to be perfect. This is, when destroyed, all of your units take their turn. It's good, but there are runs where it's not all that useful, but I think it deserves a very high placement. It's an extremely strong card. being able to just get a free turn is very good. I think it is a Clunker only card though, or Clunk Master I should say. I could see a case to be made for Noomlin Biscuit going in the top of the top tiers. The real tier, I think it's worth it for now. Noomlin Biscuit is good because you're paying one turn now, and then you're gaining turns later on by making cards free, and it combos with stuff like Shade Clay pretty well, but that's kind of beside the point. As I think about it, I kind of want to knock it down a tier, but I'm going to leave it up there for now. Noomlin Biscuit is cool. The thing about Noomlin Biscuit is that there's always a card in your deck that's worth putting it on, because there are Snowzuka, Blizzard Bottle, and Snow Stick in every deck, so you're never not going to have a good target for this, and some runs are going to win by just playing a specific card over and over again. So you can go into a position where you're just playing the Noomlin card, drawing a new deck, playing the Noomlin card, drawing over and over again, and that's good. Yeah, that's good. Fungo Blaster is fine. Play 2 Fungo Blasters and blow up entire boards because it's very fun. But for the most part, passing on poison is good if you have poison, and it's bad if you don't. So, it's fine. I'm gonna kind of speed through the bottom of this because my throat is starting to hurt, so bear with me. Forging Stove I'm gonna throw in niche, actually, because I think that a lot of times there is nothing to Forging Stove. Giving +2, the problem with this is that it's 2 cards to give +2 because your starting cards are Gearhammer, but there are a few things like ICGM, Mega Mimic, there are things that Forging Stove can go on which are cool, but for the most part what you're going to find is that this card is kind of hard to actually get anything out of. Frenzy Wrench is... I'll put it in fine. It's a way to clear junk out, and sometimes... no, you know what? I think it should go in niche. It's the best 2 recycle card in the game, and it's really, really good at being useful if you have a bunch of junk that you generate. But there's only really one card where you're going to have a bunch of junk you're generating on turn 1 that you need to clear up, and that is Bomb Barrel. But it's hard to justify playing Bomb Barrel, Frenzy Wrench, Lumen Vase, because you have to Lumen Vase, Frenzy Wrench to clear the Bomb Barrel's junk completely. And then what are you putting that Frenzy Wrench on? That's 3 crowns for what? To put it on, I don't know, there are some cards where it's cool, but for the most part it's just kind of underwhelming. But it does have the potential to do some really fun stuff in your runs, which I think is worth mentioning. Things like Cake Charm, Frenzy Wrench can go ridiculous. Frostbell is fine. Barrage, Apply to, Weaken. When I started playing the game, I thought this card was going to be one of the most powerful cards in the game, because it really does a lot of work on the final boss, but what you're going to find is that it's just okay. You don't really need it all that often, truly. Shroominator. It's like, I guess I'll give it fine. It tanks 3 hits for you, and that's the good part. This is double poison when enemies are poisoned. What I find is that poison comes in small numbers, so the Shroominator doesn't give a whole lot of value. Poisons are like 2s and 3s, they're not like 10s or 15s for a Shroominator. Lumen Lantern, I think is fine. It could probably go in almost. I'm willing to give it almost. I think Lumen Lantern is really, really good, even without charms. With Cake Charm, it creates some of the most ridiculous runs you'll see. But baseline Lumen Lantern, if you give a +1 to, I don't know, let's say Fizzle, the unit that deals 0 damage but applies 1 bomb. If you're applying 2 bomb, very strong. If you put it on a snow card, it's very strong. Like a Snoffle is very good with it. And the thing about the +2 that you're giving to enemies is that you can just silence their card effects, which is the winner. I think that's why this card is really good. You can just silence the downside, and the upside is potentially game winning. So if you have anything that this plays with, I think it's worth taking. Heartforge is fine. It applies Spice when allies are healed, pardon me. Sometimes that's really good. If you have a healing card, this is cool. If not, you probably pass this because you don't really need to fill your deck up with a bunch of chumps. Shellbow's almost. I think Shellbow could probably go in the top tier, but the only thing that really stops me is that Shellbow kills clunkers, and if your run has a really important clunker, like Chrono in it, carrying you, then Shellbow really falls off. You have to find a way to keep the clunker alive, or the Chrono alive through the first hit, which is sometimes impossible based on your run. So Shellbow, it gets knocked down a tier for that. But otherwise, I mean, this card, if you find Moko Charm, is an auto win. It's probably one of the easiest two-piece combos in the game. Shellbow Moko Charm beats everything but probably King Moko and a really fucked up fight on Frost Guardian. I've never played this card. I think Tutorian is 4 countdown, trigger a random ally, and then lose a scrap, and it has 3 scrap. I've actually never clicked on this card. I don't know, probably because it says random on it. I almost don't want to rank it because I don't think I've ever played this card. I should play it at some point. Frostboom is niche. Single target, weaken. I think the only thing that I really care about putting this on is if you have a really bad matchup into Razor, this card just dominates him. But outside of that, whatever. Blaze Bomb's fine. This is apply Frenzy, but it gives your unit Bomb. You put this on like a fragile backliner that dies in 1 hit anyway, and you go, hey, that's cool. Now they have Frenzy. Hongos is fine. This is 1 damage, apply 3 poison. Damaging backliners is good. Basically, if I see this before the first major boss, I will probably click on it, and afterwards, probably not. But this is a personal decision. I think that actually Blunder Tank should go in the niche tier, but I've lost like 2 or 3 runs trying to play Blunder Tank and then just whiffing my junk draws and dying. So Blunder Tank goes in the bottom tier, but this isn't a decision I'm making because of some sort of like gameplay decision. This is because Blunder Tank's a bastard. Bebop is fine. It's the same thing as Shroom Mine, where you're putting a unit out that puts up 4 overburn. This is a way to access backline targets and also chump a hit for you, so it can't be worse than fine, but I think the effect is kind of whatever. Bomb Barrel can be almost. Bomb Barrel was probably at one point the most broken card in the game, because you just put out 8 bomb on all enemies and then played all the junk it generated on Crown Phase and won the game immediately. But since they nerfed it and fixed the Crown Phase, Bomb Barrel falls a little bit. The good thing about it is the good thing about it is that it will generate you 4 junk, and 4 junk is enough junk to play any recycle card combo you can think of, pretty much. Critical Sun Cream, like Critical Lumen Ring Sun Cream, gets playable now, and suddenly you're cutting 4 off your units. Things like that, and the effect of Bomb Barrel is pretty good. But what you're gonna find is that the junk really weighs you down extremely fast. So your deck needs to be able to clean through enemies very quickly after you're putting Bomb Barrels out, because you're gonna be having a lot of dead turns. So it drops a little bit for that. Nutshell Cake is fine. It's fine. It's defense. It's a one-off hit of plus 7 HP to one of your units, which is fine. What else? Bink is fine. I don't play Bink all that often. I find that silence all enemies is usually overwhelming. You don't really need to give up a card slot to play this because you can just silence the important enemy with Flask of Ink instead, but it hits all enemies and it does damage, so you can put charms on it and it's cool, and silencing all enemies is fine even though it's only 2 turns. Shade Wisp, it's fine. Puts an enemy on your side of the board. Another way to survive an extra turn of hits, and I don't know, sometimes you get cool stuff with this. I don't hate it, but I think it's very easy to get bogged down by a bunch of nonsense in your run. You gotta really be balancing it out. You gotta be careful not to pick everything just because you see it. Most of the cards that are fine or below, I think most of the cards in the fine tier you're okay to play whenever. But below fine, you're probably not going to want to pick these cards unless you have a specific synergy or your run is about to fall apart and you need to improve in some way. Pinkberry Juice, almost good enough. The problem with Pinkberry Juice is that it's very dependent on everything else that your deck pulls. You need charms or Numum Biscuits or things like that to really make it busted, otherwise it's just a way to keep going, which is okay. But it's not like game winning on its own. Pepper Reaper's fine. Dealing 2 damage to one of your units for 4 spice, it's usually not that big of a deal because 1 hit of that spice on a backliner of yours is probably going to be enough to just put yourself really far ahead. Like one hit of Pepper Reaper onto a Foxy is going to put you ahead, and then all of a sudden you're ahead forever and you're just clearing the enemies as they spawn. So it's good for that, but I don't know. It's like, it's... I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than, it's alright. Haze Keg, this goes right next to wherever I put the other Haze card. Foggy Brew. This is the other one. Apply Haze. I think this one has a recycle cost to it. It's okay. I don't even know what the recycle cost is. It's fine. Actually, if this is the one with the recycle cost, I should probably knock it down a peg. I just don't find myself wanting to do this all that often, right? How often do you really want to be playing Haze Keg? Very, like, it's not that good of an effect. Clearing out junk isn't that important, I don't think. But I guess if you generate a ton of it, it's fine. I don't like Pepper Ring. I'm gonna save these cards. I want to do Pepper Ring first. Pepper Ring is apply to Spice Barrage. Why? Yeah, you don't really want to spread small numbers across your whole team. You want to spread big numbers onto a single target that then kills an enemy and puts you ahead for the rest of the fight. Pepper Ring doesn't do that. Pepper Ring gives you a bunch of small hits, which take a long time to really actualize into something meaningful. So, yeah, I don't know if I've ever picked this. Come to think of it. Alright, Berry Blade goes in almost here. Deal 3 damage to an enemy, heal one of your units for 3. Healing is really nice because without a form of healing, you are on a clock. Every point of damage you take is permanent. With even just one healing card, you can then theoretically stall a fight forever. Depending on how the fight goes anyway. So, yeah. I think Berry Blade is just very, very good. Last but not least, I'm glad it saves it like this. I think that Chrono is the strongest card in the game. I'm gonna make it so that there's only 3 cards in the top tier. I like this distribution more. I'm gonna knock the Limp Bizkit down 1. I think Chrono is just the strongest card in the game. That's all. There's no run where you can see Chrono and go, oh man, Chrono is not good here. Because every single run is playing a unit that's attacking as your main strategy. You're not playing a run where you're killing everything with cards anymore. I guess the only run I can think of where Chrono doesn't fit in is like Mini Mika or Tiny Tycho, where you're already high rolling so far out of your mind that you're doing like times 20 hits and then Chrono's just applying +1. And in that case, it's not that good. But even in that run, there's a world where it's useful because if you have a Mimic, then Chrono is doubling the Mimic's attacks, which suddenly makes it so that instead of hitting, I don't know, 20 times, Mimic is hitting 40 times, which is also ridiculous. But if you're gonna say to me, Chrono is not that good because one time I played Mini Mika and was hitting 20 times and Chrono only made it 21, sure. You can hold whatever opinion you like, but I think that Chrono is the, like, if I had to pick one card to tell you to pick in every situation, it would be Snowcake, and then after Snowcake, it would be Chrono. I think that Snowcake is like you can't be wrong to pick Snowcake because it's always just going to be very good, but Chrono is more impactful. That's what I'm looking for. Snowcake is good, but it's not winning you the fight. Chrono is winning you fights. Chrono is winning you games. You're living and dying on this card. So, yeah. That's that. Under an hour, huh? What do you know? So I'll do a quick wrap up for you here. If you're trying to approach this game, and this is also a wrap up for me to keep myself thinking about things correctly. If you're trying to approach this game from winning every single run and putting up a big win streak, what you have to know is that there are going to be times, there's going to be really desperate situations where you're about to walk into Infernoco with no damage, and in those situations, you're going to have to dip into some of the lower tier cards just because you have to pick them. Like even Tigress Mask. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to redeem Tigress Mask. It should go in niche tier. It really looks out of place down here. These are all cards that I just can't imagine ever utilizing. I can see it with Tigress Mask. Yeah, I can see it. Sorry, Tigress Mask. I was a bit of a hater. But Yeah, there are going to be times where you're just in like the world's most dire situation, everything looks so grim. And in those situations where your build is really worthless and you have nothing going for you, your hero is weak, your unit options have been bad, you're going to sometimes get shown while you're down a card pick where it's like, I don't know, Frostbloom, Clockwork Bomb, ICGM, and you're just going to have to pick one of those because it's going to have to be the card that takes you through the first boss. And then once you get through the first boss and you just live to the next turn, you get into the King Moko fight, you get through that, and all of a sudden your options open up, you hit something good, your run takes off, you win the game. But it's easy to miss at the end of the run small picture things, right? It's easy to go to the end. There have been times where I've gone to the end of the run and I've thought to myself, like, oh man, I only played Palm Bomb twice on this run. But one of the Palm Bomb plays kills like 3 enemies that are hidden behind Infernoco and saves me from dying there. But then you just go, oh, well, I didn't play this all that often. So you got to be sure that you don't fall into that mentality. You got to make sure that you understand the impact of the cards that you can play. I think, anyway. Where is Palm Bomb? There it is. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. Don't invest a ton into tier lists. Also, a lot of what I do with these games is I just kind of play them by intuition. But like I said at the start of the video, tier lists are good for the analytics, and I like it when the numbers go up. I see green number in the YouTube dashboard, and then I go, oh baby, hell yeah. So thanks for watching. I think I'm going to be uploading this in place of a normal run, so, you know, sorry, but also I'll be back tomorrow with more Wildfrost. It'll be the same as it ever was. I will see you then. Have a good one.